Hi, is it working?
Perfect.
Okay, good. Well, hello everyone. Sorry I missed the beginning, so I hope I won't repeat things that have been said already. So I'm working at CIRAD, and the work I'm going to present, it's work I've been doing with Sylvain and with Valentin Bellassène and others from before when I was in CREAF and in IPSL. So the idea is to look at the carbon substitution in the wood sector, starting from the French wood sector, and then expanding in a reflection about what is missing in our use of substitution. So to set the framework, when we talk about substitution in the wood sector, we're talking about a scenario where we would use more wood than in a reference. So here, just as an illustration, I put a wooden building as opposed to a steel and concrete building. So you have a different use of natural resources, so different levels of emissions in the resource extraction, also in the use. You can have here, I didn't put because it's usually pretty small, in the use of during the life of the building. And you have different emissions at the end of the life of the product, and it results in a different total emission over the life cycle of the product. And that's what we called substitution, the emissions that were avoided by using more wood than we would have in the reference. And typically in the studies of wood products, we use substitution coefficients. So it's pretty simple. You just compare the emissions of greenhouse gases. Sorry, I have some French left over. So greenhouse gases emissions in the reference scenario minus the ones in the wood scenario, divided by the difference in wood use. So you have for each unit of wood, of additional wood you use, how much more or less emissions occur. But in this type of substitution coefficients that are very typical, you don't take into account what happens in the forest. It's only on the life cycle side of the product. So the first thing I'll show you is a study we've done for the French forest, where we looked at the difference in biogenic carbon when we increase wood use. So for this, we made 4 categories of forests in France, depending on their physical characteristics. So based on their diameter, on their density and exploitability, we set thresholds, and we could define the forests that are abandoned, the ones that have a diameter that tell us that they will not be harvested, they will not be clear cut. The ones with a density index that's over a threshold that tells us that they won't be, their owners do not want to thin them, but maybe they will be harvested because there is an economic interest by the owner, just he doesn't want to pay the cost of the thinning. And then you have the forests that have an exploitability index that is below a threshold, so typically in the mountainous areas. So these ones, we label them as unexploitable. And then the ones that have a diameter, density, and an exploitability within the expected range, they're labeled as actively managed, and we expect them to be thinned and harvested given the current silviculture practices. So from this diagram, we were able to label all the plots from the national inventory in France. So here you can see, for example, the difference in the different categories for each species, with the hardwood here and softwood here. So for example, you can see that the Pinus pinaster, that's very intensively managed in the west of France, has a lot of actively managed and a small part of abandoned. Or for example, Quercus ilex has a very important fraction of unexploitable. So that's a bit to see where we got at. And then from this characterization of the forest, we were able to implement 3 scenarios of increase in wood removal. So the idea is that different policies will in the end target different owners. So either we will target the ones that are already actively managing, for example, by setting different prices on the wood market, or if we want to target the owners that don't do the owners of the overstocked forests that don't do the thinnings, then we will have to set policies that maybe gathers the owners together or stuff like that. So for this reason, we have three scenarios of removal increase. One that will increase the removals in the overstocked, one that will remove the removals in the abandoned, and one that will increase the removals in the actively managed. So we did scenarios progressively. So we have, no, here I'm only showing the final one. So we're targeting all of the forest in France within a category. And so here what we see, so in black, you have the reference scenario. So that's if we keep managing the plots in the same way they are managed now, that's the carbon balance in the French forest. So we keep increasing as a result of the current harvest that is below the increase, the growth. And depending on the type of forest that we target, we have a different impact on the in situ carbon stock, but also on the wood products stock. So if we, in green, if you remember, we were targeting the overstocked forest. So that means that we're starting to thin the forest that previously we didn't thin. So it's not a big deal in the forest, but we don't make much more products because it's used for energy wood. Whereas if we target the abandoned forest, so there are forests that have a very high carbon stock, we have a very large decrease in the stock in the forest and a significant increase in the wood products because it's made for long-term wood products. And so if we sum the carbon stock in situ and in the wood products, this is what we get. So what we see, the first result is that by 2050, all of the scenarios of increase have a lower carbon balance than the reference. And you can see it from the plots below, because here you see that the decrease in the stock in situ is not compensated at all by the increase in the wood product, and it's due to the well, you have a lag before the sequestration starts again, and the residuals when you harvest are left in the forest and are decomposing. And also it doesn't appear in these plots, but also you have some more fossil emissions due to the machinery during the harvest and the management operations. So from this study, we thought that maybe we can think the substitution as a whole, including the biogenic carbon, what happens in the forest. It seems important because it's not the same result as when we look at the life cycle analysis of the production of the wood products. So we could define a substitution coefficient that's for the forest. So it's the same as the one for the LCA. So it's the difference in carbon balance divided by the difference in wood produced. And if we just translate the results I showed before into this index, that's the substitution coefficients we find. So the first thing we see is that they're negative. So that's consistent with what I showed before, that you have a worse carbon balance if you harvest more, and then you progressively catch up. But by the end of the study, by 2050, we were not able to catch up. So then if you compare to the usual substitution coefficient that are derived from the LCA and the economic system only, well, the technological system only, you see the gap. It's pretty obvious. Here it's the coefficient, the substitution coefficient, but averaged over with the prorata of the use of the different wood uses. So we would have 1.2 for bio, 0.5 for energy, so that timber and energy. And so the average over France, it's 0.6, around 0.6. Whereas you see that with the forest, if you combine both, that's what we obtain. So only with one type of forest, the actively managed one, that are already forests with relatively low carbon stocks, here we managed to get back to a positive substitution coefficient, but with the other scenarios, it's very bad. Or because here in the overstocked forest, we're using it for energy, so we don't compensate, we don't get the carbon back. And for the abandoned, because we had, as we saw before, a very big loss of sequestration in the forest. So that's a very good point for this workshop, because our conclusion is that we cannot limit wood substitution only to the LCA boundaries, and even adding the biogenic carbon seems a bit small as an improvement. So basically what we did here with the French study is that we looked at the effect of harvest intensity on the biogenic carbon side of the substitution. But now there are many more questions that arise, and that's how the industry structure, how the environmental change, climate change in particular, how the innovation and technology dynamics, how the societal change, how the market mechanisms all affect each of these steps in the life cycle of the product. So that's what I'm working on now. So now I'm going to show you ongoing work. So I'm open to comments and critiques, of course. So what I've started doing with Sylvain and other colleagues is a systematic review of the literature. So the idea is to look for papers that are looking at substitution, whether they say it or no. So the idea is that we're looking at papers dealing with carbon balance, wood use, and substitution. So, but it can also be life cycle analysis or scenarios. And then that include one of these elements that I will call drivers. So we're looking at growth dynamics, silviculture, supply chain, emissions timing, environmental change, innovation, demand, and rebound. So we've selected 648 papers, and so far we've treated 240 of them, and they're for the time period 2001-2010. So we can still look at the results, even though they're only linked to one time period. So from these 648 papers, we're doing a selection. So what we're looking for is journal articles that are results paper, and that do a comparison of different scenarios that have different wood uses or different forestry practices. And then we want the paper to show a change on the carbon balance, and then an identification of the driver, of the reason for this difference in carbon balance. And then we are recording different elements. The main ones are which driver is studied, on what section of the social ecosystem it's looking at, and what is the context of the study. So here you see in more details the different drivers that we're recording. So for example, for the harvest intensity, we're looking at the rotation length. Is there a change in cutting intensity, a change in species, change in tree density, fertilization or fertility? And here you see the number of papers that we found so far over the 240 that look at what is the effect of this change. So you see that there is a big dominance of the harvest intensity of the forestry side. And then also what shows up is the interest in studying the effect of design or technology switch and the structural change in supply chains. That's where the wood goes if we move it from structural to energy wood. And then there is very small for the societal change, that's the lowest numbers we find, and for environmental change. So that's interesting. Also interesting to look at is the distribution, because we could expect that, well, my hypothesis was that we would have more drivers showing up with time. And in fact, it's not really the case. We have an explosion of the number of papers dealing with these questions, but it increases a lot for the studies with one driver. And then the most interesting thing that that we want to look at, that should be the real result, the output of this study, is to look at the co-occurrence of the drivers. What factors are looked at together, and what are looked at in isolation? A bit the thing that I introduced my talk with. So here you see, I'm showing you a co-occurrence index that's calculated as the ratio of co-occurrence of two drivers divided by the sum of their individual occurrences. So for example, you see on the diagonal, you have the maximum co-occurrence because it's a driver with itself. So here's the first thing we can, so it's very preliminary. I haven't digged out too much into these results, but the first thing we can see is that you have harvest intensity. So silviculture, it's studied as a whole. So many studies look at different drivers together. You see, it's very dark. Whereas for other domains like innovation technology, it's not that clear. So you have some drivers that are studied and others that are not. If you look here, for example. And then I think the most important result that we're looking at, we will look at how it's changing with the papers from 2010 to 2021, is that there are big gaps. So environmental change is one. So the link between environmental change and industry is almost inexistent. But even with the innovation and societal change and market-based mechanism, basically, the only place where we study environmental change is a little bit with silviculture, and still it's not very important. And in a second degree, also societal mechanisms and market-based mechanisms are also very isolated. They're a little bit studied with innovation and technology dynamics. But it's there are no link made between what happens in the forest and what happens in the society, or what happens in the forest and what happens in the economy. So it's still ongoing, as I said, and hopefully soon I will be able to show you more robust results. But as a main conclusion, when we're talking about substitution so far, it's basically what we're looking at and showing, but more and more it appears that substitution looks more like this, and we still have a lot to study and to link with what we have so far. So that's it. I'm open to any question.